Breaking news today. Sadness in the family of Putin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza. Since her husband Vladimir was convicted of treason for publicly criticizing Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russia's war in Ukraine, Yevgenia Kara-Murza has been living on autopilot. His wife and 3 children don't know if or when they'll see him again after he was sentenced to 25 years in a high-security prison in Russia on Monday. She has been so outspoken that she fears going to Russia for fear of being imprisoned there as well. Yevgenia, calling from the United States where she and her family have sought refuge, explained, "I'm afraid they might detain me to put pressure on Vladimir, and I can't afford him losing my voice as well, or leaving our kids without both parents." She claims to be heartbroken by the verdict, especially since she hasn't been able to communicate with her husband in over a year since his arrest. However, she has temporarily shut down her emotional response in order to focus on mobilizing international support. Although Vladimir Kara-Murza is also a British citizen, his government has been slower to respond to international calls for action on his behalf than those of the United States, Canada, and Latvia. The UK Foreign Office announced sanctions on Friday against 3 individuals, a judge, 2 investigators, and 2 FSB agents who are all linked to Kara-Murza's sudden, critical illness in 2015 and 2017, which was caused by a toxin that has never been identified. Yevgenia applauded the move, but she was disappointed that it didn't include any of the more than 30 names she had suggested. "It only saddens me that it took a year of unlawful detention, a horrific sentence of 25 years in a strict regime, and a very concerning deterioration of my husband's health for the British government to move to a somewhat stronger response," she told me shortly after the announcement. Vladimir Kara-Murza's foot and left-hand numbness, which first appeared after he was poisoned, have returned. The prison physician has identified a nerve disorder called polyneuropathy. "The symptoms have returned and seem to be spreading," Yevgenia says, even though he was able to keep them at bay for years with regular exercise. "I think the Russian government is using it as a form of torture to kill people over time." After his mother's marriage to a Yorkshireman, Vladimir Kara-Murza, born in Moscow in 1981, relocated to the UK as a teenager. He attended Harrow Public School and then Cambridge to major in history. He enjoys tweed jackets, pipes, and the British comedies Yes, Minister, and Fawlty Towers, as he mentioned in one of the letters he wrote to me from prison. When speaking out against President Putin's systematic assault on the activist's deeply held democratic values, Kara-Murza is equally effective in either language. His political aspirations, however, have never extended beyond his home country. "I was shown Kara-Murza's application to Cambridge University, where he stated that, leading the country in which I was born, was his ultimate goal. As the Soviet Union collapsed, he was a child and grew up during a brief but intense period of democratic chaos in Russia. He tried to register his own children's political party with the Moscow Justice Ministry when he was only 13 years old, but was turned down. In one letter to me from prison, he joked, even for those democratic days, this was too much." The failed coup in 1991 in which hardliners attempted to overthrow Mikhail Gorbachev and reverse his liberalizing reforms is the first significant political memory he has. The activist Kara-Murza recalls those times as the best and freest days in modern Russian history because his father was part of the massive crowd that built barricades around the parliament. President Putin had already begun to tighten the political screws by the time he graduated and moved back to Moscow in 2003. Kara-Murza, then 22 years old, ran for a seat in the Russian parliament that fall but ultimately came up short. Even though genuine opposition candidates were still permitted to run for office in those days, city officials would turn off the power to his campaign billboards and silence him whenever he appeared in a TV debate. He still won't be quieted after all these years. Even though no state secrets were at stake, his treason trial was conducted in private. The charges against him are based on his public political speeches he gave both in Russia and abroad, so even the official charge sheet makes it clear that he is being punished for challenging the Kremlin. It was only the prosecutors, investigators, and judges who were present when the activist gave his final address to the court from behind bulletproof glass a full year after the court ordered his arrest. The text of his speech, however, was leaked by his supporters, who posted it online in a manner reminiscent of samizdat, the method by which dissident writers' works were copied and shared during Soviet times. It could be read in less than 4 minutes. Kara-Murza would have given careful consideration to every word because he knew it would be the most pivotal speech of his political career. It's his own personal indictment of Putin's presidency. The dictator and usurper Russian president is slammed, as is his criminal war against Ukraine. This is the kind of rhetoric that led to his arrest. Boris Nemtsov, who was both a close friend and a political hero to Kara-Murza, is also mentioned. Nemtsov, a prominent reformer, was killed in 2015 by gunfire a few meters from the Kremlin. A few months after that, Kara-Murza became seriously ill. After meeting in England, they became fast friends and allies, and eventually worked together on something that seriously irritated Russia's upper crust. They worked tirelessly in the United States to pass the Magnitsky Act, which authorizes severe sanctions against those responsible for human rights abuses in Russia. The legislation targeted a privileged class that trampled on basic liberties at home while enjoying the benefits of Western education, banking, and real estate. Soon after, many other European countries followed suit, and Yevgenia Kara-Murza blames her husband's treatment on retaliation. Why? I think it's for a combination of things, including how he continues being unequivocal in his opposition to the regime and its crimes, she says. However, the passage of the Magnitsky Act in 35 or 36 countries demonstrates that Vladimir's efforts have been fruitful. This is exactly why his enemies despise him. One of the first people on the list was Chief Judge Sergei Podoprigorov, who handed down the prison sentence for Kara-Murza. In his last word, Kara-Murza spoke out against tyranny and a terrible war in a Moscow courtroom with wooden paneling. His hope for a different Russia was also communicated. A nation he is still hopeful can become honest, democratic, and liberated. From the dock, to anyone who could hear, he declared, "That day will come as surely as spring comes after even the iciest of winters." Vladimir Kara-Murza has made it this far thanks to his vision. It's his only hope for sanity while he languishes in solitary confinement.